It is a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Anthony Carbonella, who's a captain in the United States Air Force. And I'm so excited to have you on the show because you're a young dentist, you're 30 years old, and you're in the military. And the topic today was military dentistry. I'm so excited about this podcast. Your bio, you got interested in dentistry when you were 9 years old, when you had your one and only filling done. Your dentist was one of your mom's best friends, so you always felt welcome at the practice. You shadowed him in high school for 100 hours and then was completely hooked. You went to UConn undergrad with every intention of getting accepted into UConn School of Dental Medicine. Summer before dental school started, you got offered a United States Air Force scholarship for dental school.
That's right.
After graduating, went on to active duty, did AEGD residency in California, got lots of good training in every specialty, then got assigned to McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey. Been at McGuire for the past 3.5 years. You've been moonlighting for the past year to get private practice experience and to save some extra cash. You've given a couple lectures to the younger airmen, enlisted guys and gals, 18 to 21 years old, on the benefits of retirement planning and being smart with money. It's a passion of yours. Next spring, you're leaving for San Antonio, Texas, where you start the TORP, Tri-Service Ortho Residency Program, Army, Navy, and Air Force. Is that to become an orthodontist?
That's right.
Right on. Looking forward to that very much. Other than that, you're the oldest child of 4 boys. I have 4 boys.
Yeah, so I've heard in the podcast.
You would be my Eric. So, and you all went to UConn. 2 brothers are pre-med. Engaged to a lovely fiancé, Angela, who's a Jersey girl through and through. Columbia University grad, child psychologist. Thank you so much for doing this show for me.
Yeah, thanks for the intro.
So, hey, so let's get right to the military. Where along in school can someone get a military scholarship? Is this something you got to get locked up before you walk into dental school, or is this something you can do after freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior year?
So it all depends. Back in, let's see, '07, when I was graduating from college, the military was looking to grow a little bit, to take more people in. So these scholarships were easier to come by. So they actually reached out to me to offer me the scholarship. Nowadays, we're a little bit fatter and happier in terms of number of people that we have. So they're not actively reaching out to people to offer scholarships. It's kind of the other way around. You have to seek it out.
So it was expanding in 2007, and they were going out after you, and now it's contracting, and you got to get it. Right. You have to go out after them.
Right. So it's not impossible to get them. And, like, for instance, my brother is pre-med right now. He is actively applying to try and get a military scholarship to fund his medical school, whereas I had no intention of joining, not that I had anything against the military, but it didn't cross my mind at the time. And then once they contacted me, I was like, okay, that's interesting. Let me look into this. And it turned out to be a really great fit.
So what did they pay? They pick up tuition or room and board? What do you owe them?
Sure. So they will pay the tuition at any school that you get into, whether it's a state school, private school, that's 100% covered. So I let them off a little bit easy by going to a state school, but still a considerable amount of money there. Then every 2 weeks you get a stipend for living expenses. They expect for you to pay for housing and food, and they want you to be comfortable while you're in school, not have to worry about the finances of everything, so you can focus on school. And then even better than that, every time I bought a book or something that was required for school, I just had to submit the receipt, and they would reimburse me on that as well. So it really was basically 100% coverage of everything. I think the only thing I paid for when I was in dental school was the fees for my board certification, but that was pretty much it.
So did your dental school bookstores, did they sell beer?
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, nope, unfortunately not.
So what are your thoughts? There's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and actually Marines don't have dentists. The Navy dentists take care of the Marines, because the Marines isn't actually a separate division in the military. Isn't it a subdivision of the Navy?
Correct. Yep, they're a subdivision of the Navy. So it's pretty interesting. At the base that I'm stationed at, it's a true joint base. We're not just an Air Force base. It's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard. So I get to treat patients from every single different branch of service. I don't have any personal experience going to clinics from other branches, but I will say that when some of the sister service people come to see me, they do comment on how nice the Air Force clinic is and stuff like that. So, besides my own personal bias, the patients seem to think that the Air Force has got it pretty good.
So, in the military, how many? There's what, 3 million people in the military, isn't it? Isn't it the United States? Isn't the Pentagon the largest employer in America?
I believe so.
So you think of the troops as young kids. What is the average age? I mean, is it like 80% kids 18 to 21, or is it really just the full population?
No, yeah, it's a pretty full population. It tops out. Most people, let's say they enlist at 18, they stay 20 years, so they're retiring. When they're getting up towards their 40s. Some people will stay all the way for 30 years, so they'll be getting into their 50s, but that's not as common. I would say the average patient coming in to see me is somewhere in their 20s.
Yeah, it's the average in their 20s.
Yeah.
And some of these places might be different. Like I remember I went into the dental clinic at the in San Diego.
Okay.
It was like a 99 chair at the Marine
Wow.
base, and it seemed like everybody looked like a very young man.
Sure. Yep, that's right. Like, for instance, where I'm going to be doing my residency in San Antonio, that's the base where every person who enlisted, that's where they go through boot camp, basic training. So that will be a very young base. Most of the people coming through there are fresh out of high school or just shortly after that. So that'll be a really young base.
So is it so then for that young base, it's mostly going to be fillings and wisdom teeth?
So actually, when they're at basic training, they get like a pretty cursory dental exam at first to make sure that there's no big emergencies that are going to arise when they're going through those 12 weeks of boot camp. So they'll get a pano, they'll get an exam, and if they need their wisdom teeth out on an emergency basis, there is an oral surgeon present to do that. But typically, they don't get their comprehensive treatment planning until they get to their next duty station. So the emergencies are taken care of, and then they'll show up at a base that, like the one that I'm at, for their initial exam, and we'll work up a full treatment plan and then take care of them at that point. So
what is the name? I forget the name. There's how many dentists work for the United States military? Do you know that number?
I know that in the Air Force there's about 1,200. I couldn't quote you on the sister services.
And the Air Force is much smaller than the Army, isn't it?
It is. I think we're about 300,000 at this point.
300,000 in the Army?
In the Air Force. I think the Army's probably, close to double our size, but again, I don't have the exact figures on hand.
And is it true that Army stands for ain't ready for Marines yet?
I'm not going to get involved in their thing there.
You're not going to address that issue.
No.
But anyway, so the point is, you said how many dentists work for the Air Force?
I think about 1,200.
So you think probably the Army has twice that many, if they're twice as big?
Yeah, I guess that could be a reasonable guess. Yeah.
And then you have the Navy.
Sure.
And if the Air Force 300 and the Army 600, what would the Navy be?
I think they're somewhere in between, I'd have to say.
So that'd be another, that could be, let's say, 1,500.
Sure.
You're looking at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You're looking at over 5,000 dentists.
Sure.
So They buy so much materials. They have a dental research facility. I think
That's
it's in.
right.
What's the name of that, and where's it called?
It's called DECS, DECS, and
DECS.org, DECS, or is it .gov?
Let me get the exact email address or the exact web address for you, and I can email it to you.
The point I was making is they just do some of the best dental research in the world.
That's right.
But they only disseminate it to the 5,000 military dentists. I've been trying to get them to dental evaluation and consultation service.
That's right.
God, they do so much amazing research, and private practicing dentists, they think like CRA or whatever, but my God, this is just some of the best research in the world. Are you a fan of their research or?
Yeah, in fact, like when we decide if we're going to buy a new product or something within our individual clinic, that's the first place that we'll go to look to read the review and see what they thought about it. So they kind of are the Bible on, which products are good and which ones to avoid. So, for instance, like we just bought a couple of isolites and they gave it an excellent rating, and we may not have bought it prior to reading their review.
So I would. Do you know anybody there?
At one point I did. The people change over so quickly. I could reach out if you needed
Yeah,
me to.
I mean, I wouldn't mind reprinting some of their summaries in Dentaltown, or putting a link to it on the website, or because so much of I hate to say this, but so much of dentistry and research is commercialized. Like I'll just say this for pharmaceuticals, and you can read in between lines. But like a pharmaceutical company will have a new pill, so they'll have 20 different medical schools around the world do research. And, and they all say about this. But then one school, for some reason, they screwed it up and it looks really bad. Another school screwed up the study. It looks really good. And they bury all the other research and only push out the one that looks just so good. Gotcha. And the thing about these military research people, they're just no money incentive at all.
That's right.
It's just down and dirty research. And you don't have to worry because when people say this research came from a dental school, well, go in those dental schools. A lot of those professors are taking grants from companies and doing research, and if they don't, if they're not getting good results, they'll go find someone else, or they'll do 20 dental schools and just publish the best.
Right.
So that's so des.gov. That's a phenomenal. So would you now that you've been in there 3.5 years, is there really any difference we're talking about between Navy, Air Force, Army dentists, or? And who fixes up the Coast Guard? Is that also Navy?
I guess it depends on who's closest to them. I don't think that they have too many of their own dentists, but the Coast Guard here in New Jersey, they come to us. They're few and far between, and you always know a Coast Guardman comes in because they carry their full medical record with them, and it's always like a Bible, like that thick. So I'll come into the treatment room, and I'll be like, oh, someone from the Coast Guard's here when I see that Bible on the counter. But we get the full range on base, like I had said. In terms of difference between them, again, I haven't been to any of the sister service clinics, but the patients will say, I don't know if it's just me, but they'll say that they're getting some pretty nice treatment at the Air Force facility.
So so these dentists, how's the pay for military dentists?
Sure. So, I mean, that's all published. I have no problem sharing that. I think to start out, it was like in the 80s, mid 80s probably. Now, the nice thing is there's a portion of your pay that goes for housing, and it goes up or down based on what your zip code is. So when I was living in Northern California, it was X amount. And then when I moved here to New Jersey, it went up considerably. And that portion of your pay is tax-free. So that's really nice. When I go to Texas, that portion of my pay will shrink a little bit because it correlates with the cost of living associated with the area. At this point, now that I'm, almost 5 years in on active duty, my pay is around $110,000.
That's a nice steady climb, 80 to 110 in 5 years.
Within 5 years. Yep. Yeah, it's been nice. It's been nice. I mean, some of my friends working in private practice are making more, but the next thing out of their mouth is, but my student loan payment is X. And some of them, it sounds pretty crippling, So it's been a really great opportunity from a financial standpoint, for sure. I have no complaints about, I don't care that I'm not making 150 like they are, 160 like they are. because I don't have the debt to worry about.
And that debt, I mean, a lot of those guys are going to take 15 years to pay that off.
That's right. Yeah, I try and I, since I got into this whole finance thing, I try and rub a little bit off on them, but they're already swept up into the whirlwind of life, building houses, buying new cars, and doing all that crazy stuff. And on some of them, I mean, I'm kind of worried, but that's that. It's their life and how they choose to live it.
But you know what? I've met so many dentists. I mean, I've had dentists in my house, in my front room, bawling, about their finance. I mean,
Sure.
crying, tears, going through bankruptcy,
Sure.
losing everything. And I mean, sometimes they're sitting there and they have 5 cars, and you're like, dude,
Yeah.
are you a rock star?
Right.
Did I miss your latest album? I mean,
That's right.
how the hell do you become a dentist and think you're a rock star?
That's right. Yep. Yeah. I mean, my friends aren't so much into the cars or anything, and I would know about it. You could see them on my wall. That's my passion, my hobby. Yeah, I think it's just the whole having to deal with the delayed gratification through college and dental school. Once people start getting a little bit of money to rub together, they feel like they deserve to go out and spend it and reward themselves with a lot of nice things. And I'm not saying that we don't deserve those things, but I think if just for a couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years out of dental school, you consider to live a more simple life and really start to save, pay down your debt, pretty aggressively and stuff, I think that might be the smarter way to go.
Well, what they don't understand is that a worst case scenario, a dollar and a fool will soon be parted. That
Sure.
if you have a dollar, it will pay you, a nickel a year for eternity.
That's right.
I mean,
Sure.
Rockefeller's dead, and that trust fund is still in
Right.
bonds, just kicking out a nickel for every dollar he put in that thing, and then that car or that house is just this
Right.
infinite money pit, and
Exactly.
and it seems like these dentists get out of school, and most of them, by the time, I mean, they literally have to get into their 60s or retire, and they're still paying interest on, they're still paying a nickel on dollars they've already
Sure.
spent instead of
Yeah.
earning a nickel on a dollar they saved. I mean, they just never cross the chasm.
That's right. Yeah, I actually just listened to that from your 30-day dental MBA, that exact podcast, and I thought you did a good job at driving the point home on that. How, make your money work for you, and really the only way to do that is by saving and investing, and investing in appreciating assets, not cars and stuff that are just going to keep going down.
So did you listen to that on YouTube or iTunes?
iTunes, yeah. I got really into podcasts, let's say about a year ago, listening to them in the car. I have a longer commute, so I wanted to try and be productive, maybe learn something during my commute. So I've been listening to you, a little bit of Dave Ramsey, other financial stuff, and it helps to pass the time.
Who's Dave Ramsey? The dentist?
Dave Ramsey, the big total money makeover guy, baby steps, and he's a very anti-debt type of guy, and
tell him I want to interview him on my show.
Sure, yeah, that'd be incredible.
Where's he out of?
He's in Tennessee, I think.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
That's a pickup line when you go see your girlfriend Alicia tonight. You say,
Yeah.
"Hey, Alicia, you're the only 10 are you from Tennessee? Because you're the only 10 I see."
That's right.
Yeah, that's but anyway, I did that 30-day MBA. I think that was
Sure.
what, 1994,
Yeah, I think
and
so.
now it's 2016. I had algebra, so I should be able to figure out how long ago that
Right.
was.
Sure.
Is that still relevant?
I mean, I thought so.
Was that 22 years ago? Are you kidding me? 2016? Yeah.
I believe so.
That's a 22-year-old information. Did you still gain from it, or did you listen
Totally.
to it thinking it's all outdated?
No, totally. I mean, I thought a lot of the info, it was just the essential parts of whatever you needed to know about that topic. Pretty timeless information. The only way that I knew that it was dated was that you referred to each one of them as a tape. So that I got a kick out of that. But other than that, it was all pretty
Did I say
relevant. And then
8-track
also,
or VCR?
yeah, that's right. And whenever you would refer to one of your boys, I mean, you were quoting ages like, oh, this one is 6 or this one is 7, 8. So I knew that was outdated too. But all of the information was really good. I mean, I listened to it all the way through. I wouldn't have done that and wasted 30 hours or so if I didn't think I was getting
Now
something
tell
out
me
of
the
it.
absolute truth and do not lie. You have to be
Sure.
honest. Did you
Yeah,
get all the way to the end?
I did. Yeah, I did.
You're the first
Honestly.
guy. You're the
Yeah,
first
I
guy.
swear. No, I did.
Most
There
people
was
drove
some.
off the road, went off the bridge, and just went off the cliff at somewhere in the
Yeah.
20s.
No, I did. Like I said, it really helped me to pass the time, and some of the topics I was more into than others, like the personal finance one I really liked, the ortho one I really liked, pediatric dentistry, that kind of stuff. Some of the other things didn't interest me personally as much, like, a lot of the economics and stuff, but I know that someday when I get out into private practice, that's going to be important for me. So I still tried to take something out of those too.
Yeah, I always thought when I was making those that when you get those concepts in your head, a lot of the macros, well, like science and undergrad, you're sitting there thinking, why do I need to learn geometry
Sure,
and trig and
sure,
physics to do a root canal? But you'd be surprised how when you get older, the physics, you are thinking about that when you're elevating and looking at endophiles and all that stuff like
sure.
that.
Oh, totally.
So out of 9 specialties, why did you pick to specialize in ortho?
Well, when I was in dental school, I don't know about other dental schools, but I'd be willing to bet that there's not a ton of hands-on ortho experience.
There's
And
none.
yeah, exactly. So I never put a bracket on a tooth. I might have taken some elastics, some of the O-rings off and taken some photos maybe with a resident for a couple of days, but I didn't really have that much exposure to it. So how am I supposed to know that I want to do it coming out of dental school other than, well, that seems like a nice life. They make a lot of money. Once I got to my residency, they spent a ton of time with us doing every specialty, including 6 ortho cases. I worked them up. I took the cephs. I bonded the brackets. I did the bolt-in analysis. I put the wires on, changed them, saw them once a month, and I got 6 patients. Now, they were limited cases. Nothing wrong in the posterior, just crowding and spacing up front. But I was able to work 6 patients through in about a year's time, and at the end, looking back, I was like, you know what? I enjoyed that the most out of all of the other specialties.
So why do you think the 56 American dental schools, they teach you endo, perio, pedo, they teach you? Why do you think that's just a no-show from ortho? Do you think that's just a trade union, the orthodontist specialists just keeping the curriculum out of there? I mean, are you cynical and just think it's that? Because I do know in the United States, if you're an orthodontist and you start teaching ortho to general dentists, you are
Right.
blackballed. You might
Sure,
as well walk in there and tell them, that you're on drugs. I mean, you're just they don't even make eye contact with you. I've heard this from so many orthodontists. They're
Yeah,
actually afraid. They're
yeah,
afraid to teach general
and I'm
dentists.
not sure. I mean, I always thought that it was, in dental school, they're trying to teach you the bread and butter stuff that you're going to be doing every day, fillings and crowns and stuff like that. Because we didn't do a lot of crown lengthening surgery in dental school either. And when I got to residency, we were doing all sorts of perio surgery. So I was like, wow, like, why didn't they teach me this? I don't know if it's a time thing or what, but yeah, the kids who come to dental school saying, I know I want to be an orthodontist, I just didn't quite understand how they knew that unless they did a bunch of shadowing at an ortho clinic. But I really had no idea what it was like until I got to my residency.
So back to this DECS. You guys are placing so many, when you're treating a young population, like say it's wisdom teeth and restorative, on molars, that's the tooth most likely to be decayed, missing, filled, root canal extracted, replaced with an implant, crown, whatever. Are you guys doing amalgam or composites?
So it's really up to the provider's discretion in that case. So I tend to gauge, what type of patient is this? Are they aesthetically minded? Are they gonna bug out if we go with an amalgam? Or, am I going to be able to get good isolation on the tooth? Is there no choice? If I'm not going to be able to get good isolation, then we're going to go with an amalgam. And I do like having that as an option to go with. I couldn't quote any statistics, but for some reason, I find that in the high caries patients that I have, the amalgams just are a little bit more resistant to secondary decay. I don't even know if that's true.
Well, how could it not be true that half of, I mean, every ingredient in amalgam is used antibacterial. I mean, half of it's mercury, the other half is silver. We have silver nitrate in dentistry.
Sure.
Tin, the hygienists use stannous fluoride, tin.
Right.
I mean, it's mercury, silver, zinc, copper, tin. Every one of them is an antibacterial.
Sure.
And to of course they last longer, and of course they're antibacterial. But what I like about it is the thing that bothers me the most is, I mean, if you're supposed to be a doctor and you're treating a population of 2,000 and you just get rid of one tool, just say, well, I'm metal free.
Right. Sure.
I mean, how does, I mean, are all your patients the same?
Right.
I mean, to me, I look at my population, I say that guy needs an amalgam. This guy wants a composite, and I'm good with that. I don't like the extremism, because when you're young, it seems like everybody's black, white, yes, no, up, down. Everybody's an extremist, and
Right.
all the great philosophers they just preach moderation, moderation, moderation. And as you get older and older and older, you finally the piss and vinegar goes away, and you start seeing everything is 50 Shades of Gray, and you got to have that tool. I got it in my office.
Yeah. There's many times when I'll get done with a procedure and I'll be thinking to myself, wow, I was really happy that we still have this stuff around, I don't know if a composite would have worked in that situation. Now, I do some resin modified glass ionomers for, like, let's say a class 5 or something, class 5 lesion or something. But yeah, in some situations I just don't think composite's going to work out.
But I'm looking at you, and you're a charming, handsome young man. I still haven't seen one of your molars. I mean, I'm just seeing your, canine
Sure.
to canine. I'm only seeing
right.
upper front 6, lower 4. I have yet to see a bicuspid or a molar on you.
That's right.
And you know what's so funny is at least 3 times when I tried to talk a woman, it was the second molar. I have no clearance. She's grinding on her tooth. There's just
Right.
nothing there. And she's like, why? And I'm just in there thinking, okay, I'm the only person that's ever going to see it. 3
That's
times
right.
in my life, I've put a full gold crown on a second molar, and I still see her every 6 months. She still has no idea.
Sure.
Because, like all of mine are gold. I mean, if no one's going to
Yeah.
see it, why wouldn't you want it to last the longest?
I do a lot of gold crowns, and my patients are, I'll explain to them, like, these are the 3 choices. We could do the gold, we can do the all ceramic, we can do a mixture of metal and the ceramic, but these are the pros and cons of all of them. If you were a family member of mine, and for tooth number 2 here, I would 100% be recommending the gold crown, because it's going to wear so nicely. Out of all those 3 choices, it's the least likely to chip off a little piece of it or something like that. So I tend to do a lot of gold, and in the end, all the patients seem to be happy. They forget that they've got a gold tooth up there.
And it's so funny because I just lectured in Johannesburg, South Africa, and the more attractive, and we're not at the dental convention, but just when you're at the hotel, going around the city, the more attractive the girl was, the more likely one of her laterals, usually it was on the right, they just put a full gold crown there.
Interesting.
And it's funny because in America, girls will put gold on their ear, nose, rings, belly, button, ankle.
Right.
And then I noticed in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, a lot of the girls would just put like a little gold dot. And some of them put like 3, and they were gold foils, and it's just purely cosmetic. And then you come to America and you say, well, how about a gold on a second molar? No one will see it, and they like freak. Yet they've got 6 gold bars in their ear.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to ortho. So you just again, why do you want to be an orthodontist, not an endodontist, periodontist, pedodontist, oral surgeon?
So yeah, again, back to residency. My cases were really interesting in that some of them, let's say the patient had an implant and then they deployed for 6 months. They lost their retainer, like many patients do, and they come back and the molar behind it was mesially drifted, and now the implant is non-restorable. So, I learned how to do simple molar uprighting, and then I was able to restore the implant. So I just liked the collaboration. I liked the fact that the general dentist, the prosthodontist, the periodontist sometimes has to turn to the orthodontist to get that little assist in making the case come out as best as it can. Other than that, I kind of tend to like the problem solving side of things. To me, ortho seems like it's going to be more of a mental game than a skills game, hand skills. But I don't know. It just seems to be a really good fit. I tend to be like a little more laid back and easygoing, and the orthodontists that I worked with were always, kind of just smiling and walking around the clinic. Always seemed to be in a good mood, and I was like, I kind of want to be like that.
Yeah, orthodontics is a mental game. I mean, saying that ortho is just glue and rubber bands is like saying construction is just hammers and nails. It's
Right.
a big thought game.
Sure.
That's cool. And my son Ryan, who's my podcast guy, when he was an
Right.
undergrad up in Flagstaff, he got a part-time job at an orthodontist's office
Oh, nice.
and
Great.
just loved it. What was his name? Michael McLaughlin. But I do know your name, Carbonella, and that's got to be
Yeah.
either Italian, or Italian. Which one is it?
It's Italian.
It's
Yeah.
Italian. Yeah, and you loved working there. He was a big mentor of yours, and that was a great thing. So you're lecturing to kids on the benefits of retirement planning and being smart with money. What are you telling them?
Yeah, so what I was finding was, I would especially notice it during lunchtime. A lot of the assistants, congregate in the break room, and they're all going out to eat every day, bringing back whether it be McDonald's or pizza or something and this and that. And I'm all for eating, going out every once in a while, but every single day I was just kind of thinking in my mind, wow, they're not, making a ton of money, and they're spending a ton of money on lunch and stuff like that. Like, have they ever had any financial seminars or anything like that? So I would when I would work with one assistant, I'd be working, doing my thing, and kind of start asking them questions about finance. And what I found was none of them had. And after talking to enough of them, I was like, would you guys want to do like a basic finance, retirement planning 101 type of thing? And it turned out that they did. So I put together a really quick PowerPoint presentation about it, and we met during lunch one day and just went over the basics, saving money, the power of compound interest, what a Roth IRA is, and stuff like that. And a couple of them actually bought into it, and I'll see them around the clinic and ask them, how's your retirement fund going, or which step are you at in terms of this or that. And I don't know, I got a lot of personal satisfaction out of it, because no one ever reached out to me in that way when I was that age. And I really wish that they had, because I was living like a dentist when I was in dental school, not like a student, because I had this military paycheck coming in. I was going on vacations, buying nice cars, doing dumb stuff. And had I been a little bit smarter with that money that was coming in, I would have been a lot further into my retirement savings now. So I figured I didn't want to. If I could make at least one person not make the same mistake that I did, then it would have been worth my time.
Yeah, I didn't have a car all through undergrad and all through dental school. I didn't buy a car till senior year of dental school.
Wow.
And I mean, we would go seriously. We would go to the government food bank I mean,
Wow.
because anytime we walked in there, they give us a 5-pound brick of this and
Sure.
rice and this, that, and I mean, I'd go there.
Wow.
It was an 8-block walk from my home in dental school in downtown Kansas City to my apartment where me and Rui lived, and the food bag's on their way there, and I stopped
Sure.
in there and I said, well, I'm a dental student, you know, and
Right.
blah blah blah, and I told them my job, and they go, oh yeah, you qualify for all this stuff. I mean, I just yeah, and what they
Yeah.
don't realize is that they all those things they buy really increase their stress. But you know, if you got that presentation, you should make it online dental CE because
Yeah.
they'd probably really respect someone their own age telling them to. You know,
Sure.
when Grandpa tells them that, they're just an old fart, whatever.
Right.
You know, but when a 30-year-old tells them that, I mean, you would relate so much more with dental students, and they're big
Okay.
fans of Dental Town and the show and everything, and that would be an awesome
Yeah.
program. So how much
Yeah.
is an IRA? How much can you put away in an IRA each year?
I think it's 5,500 this year.
$5,500
Yep.
you can put into an
Into
IRA,
a Roth. Yep.
into a Roth IRA.
Right.
And what's the other IRA called? Just an IRA?
A traditional IRA.
And what's the difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA?
So with a Roth, you're paying the taxes now, and then it's allowed to grow tax free.
So you pay it's after tax money for a Roth.
Right.
Okay, Roth
That's
is
right.
after tax money.
Yep. The only problem with a Roth is once you hit a certain income, you're no longer qualified to contribute. You could do something called a backdoor Roth where you contribute to the traditional and then at some point you switch it into a Roth. Luckily, I haven't hit that income yet.
What's the income for that?
I was surprised that I think it's under 200,000. I think it's under $180,000 that you no longer are able to directly do it that way.
And then what's
But
a traditional IRA? That's pre-tax money,
yeah, exactly.
but then
Yep.
you're taxed on it when you take it out.
Right.
Now,
Yep.
is a Roth when you take it out, is it tax free?
Yeah. There's no taxes owed once you reach retirement on the Roth because you've already paid them up front, which is nice because later on in life you may be in a higher tax bracket and you were contributing way back in your 20s when you were at a low tax bracket.
But what you said earlier about they're going to lunch every day, or
Right.
they're going to Starbucks on the way to work and getting up a $5-6 coffee, and it's only $2.50 a day for every $1,000. I mean, there's 365 days in the year, so it's only $2.50 a day. And, so if you just save $2.50 a day,
Sure.
if you're buying a Starbucks every day, there's $5. That's $2,000. If you're doing
That's
a
right.
Starbucks for $5 and then a $5 Subway for lunch, now you're at $4,000.
That's right. And what I did in one of my, I think it might have been an email out to them. I think I titled it "You're eating your retirement for lunch." And what I did was I calculated, if you're spending $5 a day on lunch, if you were to invest that and get, I know back in the day people used to quote 10%, 12% interest on your returns. I did 7 just to be conservative. If you do $5 a day, 5 days a week for this many years at 7%, it would, you ate this much of your retirement, a couple $100,000. Or if you're doing $7 a day, some of them spend $12 or $13 a day on lunch. So I thought that was a pretty in your face numbers, but yeah.
And the other thing I don't understand with these dentists is, they'll go get a house on a 30-year mortgage.
Yeah.
Yet
Right.
13 payments a year on a 12-month, 30-year payment, you'll cut it off in 15 years. And
That's right.
and it's like they want to learn something and they want to buy a shiny toy. They're flying across the country to see a course, and they can't even do a 15-year mortgage on their house, which is just one extra payment a year. 13 payments a year on a
Sure.
12-month year. It takes a 30-year loan to 12, and it's just because they just don't understand money.
Right.
And what's so sad about the 30-year loan, which I don't even think should be legal, I really think it's a crime.
Right.
The SBA loan was made much years later, and they put that thing at 24. I think the 30-year loan should be abandoned because the first 6 years are interest only, yet they look at
Right.
the research, the average American moves every 6 years.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
The only person making money on housing is Wall Street, the
That's right.
bankers, the financiers, and these people who just don't understand money. They work their whole life so that a bunch of people can make millions a year
Off of them.
on interest.
Sure. Yep. And that's, like I was talking about Dave Ramsey before. He's jamming that down people's throats.
Dave Ramsey.
Fif-
Oh,
Yep.
sorry.
15-year fixed. 15-year fixed. That's what he's always saying. And I haven't been able to settle down for long enough to buy a house yet, but that's what I plan on do.
Dude, you're single. The trick is you just don't marry a woman unless she already has a house. That's the trick on a house. It's easier to find a friend that has a boat than to buy a boat. Why do you buy a cabin? You're telling me you don't have a friend that has a cabin? You don't need to buy any of that stuff. What's the difference between military and civilian? You're doing some private practice, making some extra cash. What's the bottom line difference? So she has Christy Wright's business boutique is in Phoenix, May 13th. That's interesting. But so what's the difference between a civilian and military dentistry? From your private practice experience.
Yeah, so I got to be honest. I've really enjoyed both of them. On the civilian side, the interaction with the patients is a little bit different. I'm not a big salesman on treatment plans and stuff. I really want the patient to have a desire. I want to give them the options, and I want them to want it. I don't want to have to really sell it to them. So in the military, I can come up with whatever treatment plan that I want, basically, and execute it. And the patient's typically okay with it because they're getting implants, they're getting crowns and stuff like that, and they don't have to pay a dime. And on the civilian side, that I would say that's probably the biggest difference is having to take finances into consideration, and something that I look forward to getting a little bit more practice with.
Very good, very good. So what else? What's next? I've got you 45 minutes. I only got you 15 minutes less. What else you want to share with these viewers?
Yeah, I mean, just more back about smart spending and stuff like that. Like I was saying, when I was in dental school, I got a new car. Well, not a new car, but slightly used car every 2 years. I couldn't spend the money fast enough. I was going out to eat with my friends all the time. Now, I had a great time, developed some really great friendships and stuff, but, I hit a moment probably a year after I got out of my residency. I was like, all right, let's sit down and make an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to put my assets in this column, my liabilities in that column. And at the end, I'll get my net worth. And it was not what I was expecting it to be. And I was kind of, angry with myself. How could I have gone through all of this, a year of residency, and then a year of working as a dentist, making X amount, and have a net worth close to zero, And I just started to see everything a little bit differently. My car wasn't as exciting to walk out to the next day. My apartment that I lived in Princeton, New Jersey, for $1,800 a month for a 1-bedroom wasn't as nice as I used to think that it was. So I just dove into learning more about it. In the Dental Town magazine that comes, I read Doug Carlson's articles, and from there he recommended a bunch of books and websites and podcasts. So I got into I actually have them right here because I thought you might ask. John Bogle, Little Book of Common Sense Investing. That's where I learned about index funds, which is one of the ways I invest now. Random Walk Down Wall Street. Kind of explained how the whole stock market works. I didn't even know the difference between a stock or a bond. I'm not afraid to admit that. I've got another one, The Only Winning Investment Strategy You'll Ever Need, Larry Swedroe. more, more boglehead stuff. So I just really dove in and started reading and opened my eyes about what it's going to take to have the life that I'm going to want to have. And I've just been trying to keep it going ever since.
Can you email me the name of those books and the authors so I can put that in the notes for these kids because they're driving their car, so that was a lot for them to remember.
Yeah, totally. And then also on the other side of things, finances is one thing, but I also wanted to improve. I found that when I wanted to improve my finances, I was like, okay, well, money is one thing, but what am I doing this for? And I realized that I just wanted to improve my whole life overall, be a better friend, be a better, now fiance, future husband and stuff like that. So, I started reading other books that were also recommended in articles I read. The magic of thinking big, how to win friends and influence people. I think I've heard you mention that one in one of your podcasts, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it's just really empowering stuff. If you open up your mind and become receptive to what it's saying and pick out the pieces that you can apply to your life, it's been a fun journey so far. And I'm just getting started with it, but looking forward to continuing for sure.
The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey, he passed away this last year.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he fell off his mountain bike, bumped his head.
Oh, man, wow.
Yeah, that's tough. And How to Win Friends, and those are all just great books. They're just,
yeah.
But you epitomize that all readers are leaders. And
Sure.
Another thing you talking about, they're spending too much money. They might also be spending too much time on Netflix and TV and all these talk shows when the guys like you are reading. I mean, I could pan over to my library, but I mean, I've read a book a week since I was a kid. And all leaders are readers, and here you show up to a podcast with 7 books, and you are just the bomb.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I try and live a balanced life. My fiance and I, we do follow a couple Netflix shows, but there have been times we've gone on a binge and watched 3 or 4 episodes in a row, and at the end I'm like, man, I probably could have done something a little more productive today, but I'm trying to make it a goal to do at least an hour of reading, self-improvement, that type of thing every day. And a lot of these books talk about that.
And when my 4 boys were little, I would just, you got to be a leader, and I would just walk in the room and say, okay, it's deer, drop everything and read. And I'd turn off their video game, TV, whatever, and they used to love it. They'd run for their book, they'd run for the couch. I'd usually have to read with the youngest one that couldn't read, or sometimes there was 2 of them, and it's just a daily thing. I mean, it's just cool.
Yeah, I can remember we used to have a summer reading list every summer that we had to pick like 4 or 5 books. And I remember as a kid, my mom asking, did you do your reading yet today? And I'm like, it's summertime. Like, no, I don't want to read. And I never understood why she was always pestering us about it. But,
And now you're a dentist. 2 of your brothers are in pre-med. What's the third one doing?
That's right. The third one
the fourth one.
So he went to UConn as well, to business school for accounting. Decided that it wasn't a good fit for him, so he's in kind of like a transition phase right now. But I don't think I'm going to be able to sway him towards dentistry. I tried on the 2 pre-med guys, but they're sold on it.
Yeah, what kind of med do they want to do, and what do they think about the difference in finance? One working for basically Medicaid. For my international listeners, 17% of the show is international, but so the United States doesn't have a national health insurance like Canada and Australia and all that. They have a Medicare from the feds for the 65 and older. Then each of the 50 states has a Medicaid for the poor, but Obamacare is kind of merging them, trying to get them. We'll eventually go single payer, and the reason I know that's a fact is because usually, I mean, the other 20 countries did it. I mean, that's a huge sample size. They're all humans, too. They all looked at the same issue problems, and it seems like but the reason we don't have a single-payer system is when people point to a single-payer system, they always point to really small sample size, like 5 million people in Denmark or, Norway or Sweden or this. Now, America is a monster country, and you have to compare the healthcare system of a country with 1/3 of a billion people to like India with 1.2 billion, or China with 1.3 billion, or Indonesia with 280 million, or Pakistan or Bangladesh. And so for a country this enormous, I think we're doing a very good job. And I don't think you can just implement a system and say, well, this worked in Denmark. I mean, Denmark has less people than Arizona.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, my brothers, our grandfather was a pediatrician for 40 years, my mom's dad. My mom's a nurse. My oldest cousin is a pediatrician. I have another cousin who's a nurse. So medicine was always a huge part of my family. I was the first one to kind of break away and go the dental route. And at one point, I thought I had one of my brothers convinced to follow me down that path. I even said, hey, we can open up a practice you can come join my practice someday or something. But, I think part of it is following in grandfather's footsteps. He's like the patriarch of our family, and just a huge influence in our lives. And they seem pretty sold on the idea. The only problem is it's gotten so damn hard to get into school that the one who's been applying, he had to take the MCATs again, and finally he did get accepted. I'm so happy for him. And the youngest, he's a senior at UConn now, so we're still waiting to see if he's going to get accepted. But yeah, I wasn't able to sway him. I presented some of the financial aspects to him, and just based on what people had been saying, medicine versus dentistry, and it didn't seem to change their mind too much.
Do you remember off the top of your hand, average dentist makes $175 a year? Do you know what the average MD was making when you're presenting?
Well, you know what? I have an article here from the AEGD. Let's see, a while back, July 2013. They're saying that the average med student had total educational debt of $161,000, whereas the dentist had $203. Then the average doctor gets out and makes $177. Well, not right away, but I guess that's the average of all doctors. But then the dentist average was $194. So it looks like a little more debt, but with a higher salary.
Well, the problem with the salary is that 2005, the average dentist was making $225, and 10 years later, just slippery, all $175. So dentist income has slid $45,000 in 10 years.
Wow.
It's consistently sliding, $4,000 to $5,000 a year. It just keeps going down. Now, humans, one of the thinking errors is linear thinking. That doesn't mean obviously it's not going to go, to zero. But it has been going down every year for 10 years in a row.
Wow. And what's the reason for that?
Well, I mean, you're increasing the supply of dentists. The
Gotcha.
class size have bumped up huge. Lehman Day, September 15, 2008, was a monster crush to dentistry, and we have not recovered to pre-Lehman days. Either have lawyers and either have lattes. People are buying. When you're talking about don't have get a Starbucks on the way to work,
right.
Yeah, Starbucks is. Lattes have not recovered since Lehman days, and either has dentistry and either has lawyers. I mean, America has 1 million lawyers, and people are starting to go online and getting generic forms, and they're just not always thinking,
right.
"Well, I'm going to ask my lawyer,"
Right.
But
sure.
yeah, it's an amazing. So, well, hey, dude, I thank you so much. It's so fun to have. If I get 100 emails on the show, by the way, you ever email me? It's howard@dentaltown.com. It's always the same story. I'm junior, senior in dental school, and I'm thinking about that. Or, I'm a couple of years out, I'm thinking about that. But every once in a while, probably, every once in a while, somebody will send me an email and say, hey, I just want to tell you, old parts listen to your show too. I'm 56 or whatever the hell.
Sure.
And I had one guy the other day said he's a big fan of the show, so he would listen to everyone. He was 72. I thought that was pretty cool. But it's fun to get someone their own age. And,
sure.
And like I say, I think you can talk stronger to him than I can because they're just going to see me as grandpa. and they're going to see you as, come on, this guy's my age and he's wise beyond his years, and I need to read more. I need to get more financially literate. I need to lower my spending, quit living like I'm Rod Stewart or the Bee Gees or the Rolling Stones.
Sure.
And I think all that stuff is just stressful. I mean, I don't want to
Yeah.
manage some cabin. And people ask me, do you have a cabin?
Right.
Why the hell would I want to manage a cabin? I'd rather go rent a cabin. Same thing with the boat. I mean, I just go to the lake and they walk you to the dock and there's your boat. And when you're done,
Right.
I mean, I don't want to take care of any of that crap. And it just saves you so much money.
Sure. Yeah. No, I agree. Hey, how do I get you the PowerPoint? Right now, it's kind of geared towards the military, but I can make it a little more universal.
You mean for an online CE?
Yeah.
I'm Howard at Dentaltown. We have another Howard there that's in charge of online CE, Howard Goldstein. So his email is Hogo, Hogo, at dentaltown.com. He's in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And he's built all of our online CE courses. And it's so cool. Your friends are going to like this because they can watch that on their iPhone.
Yeah, that's right.
Their iPad, their Samsung, Droid, whatever. And that would just be a hell of a presentation. What would you call it?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think I called it Finance 101 when I gave it at work. So
I like that one time you said don't eat your retirement.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I thought that was catchy because the bottom line is if you want to change something in your life really big, you always have to change something very small every day the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And if you're just not going to walk up to a mountain and move it, but if you just shovel a little every day for a long time. So the biggest changes in your life are when you change something little every single day. And with finances, it's the same thing. And, just going to a 15-year loan instead of a 30-year loan, just deciding I'm going to take my lunch and buy an IRA. I mean, and then the other thing is when you look at divorces, I mean, the divorces are, they're over money, sex, and substance abuse. And substance abuse is obvious. But money, it's because they're not sitting down together transparently with a plan and a budget, and then they get to, and then they see this spending and they don't say anything, and then it builds up, and then when they're short, they erupt and say, well, why do you do all that, and why do you do that, and then it's not pretty, and like I say, it's in fact what I'm reading is it's the number one cause of divorce.
Yep.
It's money. So not only eating your retirement, you might be eating your marriage.
Right. I like that. Yeah. No, that's definitely true. I've heard that a lot.
So maybe we should call it why you should not eat your spouse.
Yeah.
It's murder, and you'll go bankrupt. Don't eat your retirement, and don't eat your spouse. And what I like about it the most is it's just minimalistic living is just low stress.
Sure. Yeah, I totally agree.
Just low, like out here in the desert. You have all this desert, so there's no mowing, no landscaping, no nothing.
Yeah,
and what's their first great idea? I'm going to pay $10,000 and roll in a lawn and palm trees and all. Really?
Right.
Really? So you just want to spend all that time and money because you want to? Why don't you go walk across the street and look at a palm tree?
Yeah, that's right.
But hey, Anthony, thank you so much for your time. And last question: how long are you going to stay? You going to stay in there 20 years? When you become an orthodontist, you're going to leave? What's your plan?
They've been so good to me so far. It's kind of hard to tell what the future will hold. Me personally, I wouldn't mind. I like it. I like moving every couple of years. I like seeing different places, the opportunity to maybe live overseas in Europe someday. But now that I'm getting married, I got another person's feelings and wishes that I have to take into account. So after my residency, we'll see where my next assignment is, and how we enjoy that, and then we'll kind of play as we go.
Well, if you're listening to this on iTunes, you got to switch over and look at this on YouTube because he's in the Air Force and he completely looks like Tom Cruise. I mean, down to the hair, good looks. You're a handsome devil. Thank you so much for spending an hour with me today.
Thanks so much, Howard. I appreciate the opportunity, and we'll hopefully stay in touch.
And email your other podcast guy or anybody that you're listening to that you think would be great talking to your dental homies that I'd love to interview.